Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today's story is one that's shaking the foundations of Eastern Europe. The unthinkable may finally be happening: the end of Alexander Lukashenko's long and controversial rule in Belarus. Reports are coming in that sections of the Belarusian army have turned against the dictator. After nearly 3 decades of iron-fisted control, it seems the regime that once appeared unbreakable is now facing its greatest internal threat. Let's dive deep into how this all unfolded, what's happening on the ground, and what it means for Belarus and the entire region. For decades, Alexander Lukashenko has been known as Europe's last dictator. He ruled Belarus since 1994, maintaining his grip through rigged elections, brutal crackdowns, and a tight alliance with Russia. But over the years, discontent simmered beneath the surface. The 2020 protests marked a major turning point when millions took to the streets demanding his resignation after another disputed election. Those protests were crushed with mass arrests, torture, and media censorship. Yet even though the streets went silent, the anger never truly disappeared. Fast forward to now, reports suggest that the military itself, once the pillar of Lukashenko's power, is starting to fracture. Soldiers who were once fiercely loyal to the president are refusing to carry out orders. Some units have reportedly taken control of local garrisons, refusing to recognize Lukashenko's authority. The cracks are widening, and for the first time, the regime seems unable to contain the rebellion with propaganda or fear. The signs of internal dissent had been visible for months. Military morale had plummeted after years of poor pay, corruption, and forced involvement in suppressing protests. The deployment of Belarusian forces to support Russian operations near Ukraine's border became the last straw for many soldiers. They saw it not as defending their country, but as serving Moscow's interests. Many young officers began questioning why Belarus was sacrificing its sovereignty for Putin's wars. Behind the scenes, several officers had been quietly organizing. They created underground communication networks, coordinating plans to take control of strategic facilities if the opportunity arose. According to reports, their moment came after a series of controversial decisions by Lukashenko, including a reshuffle of top generals that removed respected commanders and replaced them with loyalists. That move backfired. Instead of cementing his control, it accelerated the rebellion. The rebellion reportedly began in the city of Brest, near the Polish border. Soldiers there seized control of an armory and declared that they no longer recognized the president's orders. Within hours, similar uprisings were reported in Hrodna and even near the capital, Minsk. Videos circulating online, though not all verified, show Belarusian flags being replaced by the old red, white banner, a symbol of resistance. Civilians in several cities have reportedly joined in, providing food, shelter, and moral support to the rebelling soldiers. For Lukashenko, this is the nightmare scenario. His entire rule has depended on loyalty from the military and security services. He managed to survive protests, sanctions, and international isolation because the army and police stood by him. But if that loyalty collapses, his regime could unravel overnight. Sources suggest that Lukashenko has retreated to a secure compound near Minsk, surrounded by elite guards, unsure whom he can still trust. Meanwhile, Russia is watching closely. Vladimir Putin has long seen Belarus as a buffer state and a loyal ally. Over the past few years, Moscow has increased its influence through economic ties, military bases, and political pressure. The Kremlin likely views this rebellion as a serious threat not just to Lukashenko, but to its own sphere of control. There are already reports that Russian advisors are in contact with Belarusian officials, urging them to restore order at any cost. Some even claim that Moscow might intervene militarily as it did in Kazakhstan in 2022, to protect its interests. However, this situation is different. The Belarusian people are not just protesting, parts of the armed forces are actively resisting. If Russia intervenes, it could face a full-scale insurgency. Belarusian officers who have turned against the regime are already warning that any foreign troops entering the country will be treated as occupiers. This message resonates strongly with a population that's tired of being a pawn between Moscow and the West. The international community has been quick to respond. Poland, Lithuania, and Ukraine have called emergency security meetings. The European Union has urged restraint, warning Russia not to interfere. NATO has increased surveillance along its eastern borders, while humanitarian organizations are preparing for a possible influx of refugees. The situation is volatile and could spiral out of control if not contained. Inside Belarus, the state media is in chaos. Broadcasters are airing conflicting messages, some still loyal to Lukashenko, others silent or hacked by opposition groups. Internet access has been restricted in many areas, but citizens are finding ways to communicate through encrypted apps. The opposition leader in exile, Sviatlana Tsikhanouskaya, has issued a statement urging unity and calling this moment the beginning of Belarus's liberation. Her words have gone viral, fueling hope among citizens that real change may finally be coming. Lukashenko's remaining loyalists are trying to project strength. State TV has shown footage of him addressing troops, claiming that the rebellion is a foreign plot orchestrated by NATO. But his words sound hollow. The images show a visibly shaken leader, surrounded by generals whose loyalty now seems uncertain. Analysts say that Lukashenko's grip on power has weakened to the point where even his inner circle might soon abandon him to save themselves. If the military rebellion continues to spread, Belarus could be on the brink of civil conflict. Some analysts warn of a potential division within the armed forces between units that support the rebellion and those still loyal to Lukashenko. That kind of split could turn violent fast. Others believe the uprising could end swiftly if senior generals negotiate Lukashenko's resignation in exchange for amnesty. Either way, the dictator's era appears to be nearing its end. The Belarusian people have endured decades of fear and repression. Many remember the disappearances of opposition figures, the censorship of media, and the brutality of the secret police. Now, with parts of the army taking a stand, the dream of a free Belarus feels within reach. Citizens have begun to organize local committees to maintain order and prevent looting, signaling their readiness to rebuild the nation from the ground up once the regime collapses. International experts point out that this crisis could reshape the geopolitical map of Eastern Europe. If Belarus breaks free from Moscow's orbit, it could inspire similar movements in other countries under authoritarian influence. For Russia, losing Belarus would be a strategic and symbolic blow, another sign that its power is weakening across the region. For Europe, it would mark the emergence of a new democratic frontier between East and West. Yet uncertainty looms. Even if Lukashenko is overthrown, the transition to democracy won't be easy. The country's institutions are deeply corrupted, and Russian influence runs deep in its economy and military. A new government would face enormous challenges in balancing relations with the West while avoiding open conflict with Moscow. The path ahead will require unity, patience, and courage from all Belarusians. As night falls over Minsk, tension fills the air. Armored vehicles patrol the streets, but many of the soldiers seem hesitant. Reports suggest that in some places, troops have refused to fire on civilians. The capital stands divided, a regime clinging to its final breath, and a population determined to see it gone. The world watches, wondering if this is the final chapter of Lukashenko's rule or the beginning of something even more unpredictable. What's clear is that Belarus will never be the same again. The fear that once silenced the people is fading. The soldiers who chose to stand with their nation rather than their dictator have ignited a movement that could redefine Belarus's future. No matter how this rebellion ends, the spirit of resistance has already changed the course of history. And so, the question remains, can Lukashenko survive one last storm, or has the tide finally turned against him? The coming days will decide not just his fate, but the destiny of an entire nation. One thing is certain, the world is witnessing history unfold before our eyes. If you found this analysis informative, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. We'll continue following every development as Belarus stands at the crossroads of revolution and redemption. Stay tuned for updates on this unfolding story. The end of Lukashenko might just be the beginning of a new Belarus.